So the first question everyone asks about AI is, are the robots going to one day end humanity? But I think the more interesting question is, does AI teach us about the origins of humanity? Does it teach us about human exceptionalism, about why we are so different and have invented so much versus every other animal? Because it can't be a genetic difference. We are virtually indistinguishable from chimpanzees, and the neural networks in our head are very similar to numerous other animals. So why the exception? And this is a problem within anthropology, because if you go back in the archaeological record, about 250,000 years ago, you see that humans have one invention. It's a hand axe. It's essentially a stone that's sharpened intentionally at the sides to form an axe. And for about 200,000 years, we see no other invention. We see no improvement, no incremental. 200,000 years, generation after generation after generation of humans don't change the fundamental makeup of the hand axe until about 50,000 years ago. And so 200,000 years of nothing, and then from 50,000 years, we've gone from hand axes to space shuttles, to the internet, to automobiles, to drones on Mars. Why the crazy explosion of innovation, of technologies and communities and cities? What caused this? And anthropologists have struggled to answer this question, because it can't be genetic, because there's no genetic improvement, there's no time to make any genetic change. 50,000 years is a blink of an eye in terms of a genetic lineage. And I think AI and large language models have begun to teach us the reason why, because exactly the same thing has happened over the last decade with large language models. Neural networks have been around since the 60s, and people have played with them, and they virtually did pretty much nothing, right? These artificial neural networks did nothing until you had this large increase in compute power, the GPUs, the chips that NVIDIA share price is showing you, and also the huge amount of context. Because what they were able to do is they trained themselves on the information on the internet. Never had there been a treasure trove of information like that to train these neural networks on before. And so under a certain amount of compute, a certain amount of context, suddenly emerged out of nowhere, which very few people were really predicting, this crazy intelligence of large language models, which we see now in ChatGPT and other Gen AI systems. And well, that probably now reveals what happened to us as a species 50,000 years ago, because there were several things which all of a sudden gave us a large amount of compute, a large amount of context. So to point to a couple, one was we invented fire for cooking. So if you look at the archaeological record of Australopithecus, they have a very big sort of waistline, because actually they've got a lot of gut tissue, because they need to break down all this uncooked food. But actually, once we start cooking our food, you no longer need all of this gut protein, and all of this protein shoots up. We can see it in the archaeological record, shoots up, and the size of our brain increases. So you've got this extra compute power, and at the same time, we don't have the internet to train ourselves. What we have is our community, because we start to develop proto-natural language. And for every other animal without natural language, they have their own experience. But we, in a community, an ability to communicate, have everyone else to learn from ancestors to learn from folklore, from tradition. And suddenly we have all of this extra context and information the very time we have this extra compute. And that is probably, even though no one predicted it in AI, and certainly no one has been able to figure it out so far in terms of the anthropological record, that's probably the very thing that also created human exceptionalism. And so it's that comparison and what AI teaches us about ourselves and our origins, not just our eventual demise.